Charles Fournier graduated from the University of Wyoming with an MA in literature, and he teaches writing, thinking, reading, being kind, dancing, fire making, wrestling, and on occasion dirt bagging to students of all ages and creeds. Charles' story for Insight tonight is about a family's burial of saints, traditions, and memories, and what the implications of digging can be. What is gained or lost in the retrieval of histories that compete for priority in our minds? Please welcome Charles Fournier with We Dig to Understand.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're good. John did not explain why we dug, but I assumed that we were retrieving the fabled fridge full of money. John's Depression-era upbringing in the haunted hills of southern Colorado ingrained in him the kind of paranoia that resulted in such treasures. So I labored at the soil with a post-hole digging bar John had made. He eventually interrupted my work. "Not like that, Chucky. Let me show you how. I made this." John had constructed the tool by welding a cannibalized Ford axle spring to a rusted 5-foot steel rod. The bar was meant for exact vertical slicing. John explained his ingenuity by pointing to the tool's design. "It's like a chisel, no?" And he motioned his hand over the point of the blade like a rolling wave in order to show the ease with which the angle could slice the earth. He practiced pragmatism. His faith in function and quality, or his faith was in function and quality, and that resonated through everything he made. No item served a singular role, and each would last beyond his lifetime. A stairwell doubled as an oil-changing ramp. A grotto of the Virgin Mary quadrupled as a retaining wall, a clothesline frame, and a support for a bread oven. All of which was made from rock acquired from a fallen corral on John's small childhood homestead. This work offered him a sense of purpose and immortality that faith did not. Immortality through creating was far more tangible than through prayer. Now, because of John's pride in his creations, each required a meticulous explanation of use. That day's particular clarification included the raising of his shoulders and the massaging of his hands as if he were adjusting a pair of gloves long worn away. He then modeled, heaving the tool up and down. "See that?" he'd ask through asthmatic breaths as clay split. When satisfied with his tutorial, he handed me the tool. He mimed the motion once more before pointing me back to work, nodding as I used the tool to his satisfaction. Once the hole was measured and squared, John produced St. Joseph from his pocket. Hazel had donated a white handkerchief, which John tucked around the saint for preservation. They did not mean to punish the saint with filth, just with a burial. John pressed the shrouded saint's face into the ground before dragging his swollen knuckles along the mouth of the grave to backfill the displaced earth. He leveled the soil with cupped hands and then sat, wheezing from too many years in the mine, onto his heels, almost prayerful. He looked over the churned rectangle before collecting rocks within his arm's radial reach. Like any other burial in feral dog country, John piled rocks on the plot to prevent a late night's pillaging of the buried. When satisfied, he brushed his hands. In the same manner, two gnarled roots might be ground against each other to be cleaned. He stood, ensured his stability, clapped me on the back, and shuffled to the garage. His role in this particular ceremony was absolutely complete in his mind. Now, when my wife, Jenny, and I attended an archaeological field school in Italy, we learned that Italian archaeologists would have dug that soil first because the rectangle of rocks delegated the space as the most modern layer. And regarding any question about our job, Jenny's trench leader, Andrea, would explain, "We dig to understand." Italians dig stratigraphic layers chronologically to better catalog each layer. This results in a more accurate contextualization of artifacts found. But because modern layers can mingle with ancient layers in churned soils, differentiating the past from the present becomes difficult. Remnants of history sometimes evolve into superstition and myth. So if Italian archaeologists were to pursue a dig at John and Hazel's Rocky Mountain villa, and if they uncovered the shrouded saint, the purpose of the artifact would be debated. But hypotheses surrounding the burial would be limited without the context of John's pragmatism and Hazel's faith. They may ask, is this a damnation of faith or the eradication of a religion similar to that of the Romans to the Etruscans? Did they bury rather than destroy memorabilia to avoid angering false gods that might have a little wrath left? Whatever objective conclusions made, they won't include why John was pragmatic enough to shroud the saint, but not faithful enough to attend Mass, nor why he hung a welcome sign backwards in his room to ward off otherworldly intruders. They will disregard how digging into the past might reveal an understanding that ruins the present memory of someone. From the porch where she watched, Hazel handed me a prayer card from the St. Joseph Home Sellers Kit. Jenny assured her that I would read it. Hazel didn't want to leave selling the house solely up to chance. Then, oxygen cord in hand, Jenny led Hazel inside to nap through televised Mass. John had followed the physical directions for the kit without modification. His compliance pointed less to his religious devotion and more to his job site competency and willingness to appease Hazel's desire to sell the house. Burying the saint he could do. The prayer was too much. So I read the prayer as mindfully as I could. I did not want my religious misgivings to be the reason their house didn't sell. And when it sold, Hazel requested that I retrieve the unscathed St. Joseph and replace him with broken rosaries and saints. When they moved to Cheyenne, Hazel rewarded St. Joseph with a spot on their new mantle. And by then, John's health made his ability to create and use his tools fail. The ingenuity he built into the house he and Hazel grew old in was traded for the practicality of a prefabricated home and access to family and health care. John passed shortly after the move. Sometimes, when alone in the garage he didn't build, I shoved my face into the coat he left hanging off of the tractor and breathe in any memory it sparks. This relic fits my understanding of John, so I hold on. My memory muddles his stories and my experiences with him into a view that I am not willing to ruin by digging into why he wouldn't read a prayer. Thank you.
Charles Fournier.